Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 101 of the Print on Demand Cast. Thank you guys again so much for your patience last week as we navigated, re-navigated, and as always, had to pivot what we were doing for the 100th, but we hope you guys liked it. And as always, my co-host for all 101 of these episodes, Travis Ross. Travis, how you doing, man? How is your Monday?
I'm good. I just want to let everyone know that no Dalmatians were harmed in the recording of the 101st episode. That's a good thing, right? We like Dalmatians. They're really cute. Yeah. I'm doing great, man. It's a Monday and a lot of things going on, obviously, and probably could talk a lot longer than is necessary for how's your Monday gone so far?
So far so good. Can't complain too much. Lots of meetings, lots of emails, lots of calls. Typical Monday, really.
Yeah. We had a good time yesterday.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So for those listening, everyone knows Travis is in a band, and he had a show at a restaurant nearby town called Erie, and I was able to go and capture some footage, some pictures, do some promotional stuff for the band, and it was a good show, dude. I mean, it was a little rainy at parts, and you're on a patio, but you guys were covered completely.
Yeah.
There wasn't any issue with, sound equipment or anything like that, but It was a good time, man. You guys sounded great. I had a really good time at your show.
Thanks, man. It was good. I saw some of the things you've started to produce for the, for kind of social medias and all of that. But if you are interested and you're close by, you can follow our Facebook group. It's 10 Cent Profit. That's PROPHET. I think it's facebook.com/10centprof with a PH at the end.
Yep.
You can check it out. We'll be posting some videos and some videos and pictures and all that stuff from this video or from this gig, because Josiah thankfully came out and actually recorded it.
Yeah, it was a good time. We got a lot of good footage, got a lot of good pictures, and it was great. I mean, I only had one drink at the place, but their Bloody Marys were fantastic. It was very spicy. Delicious. Happy hour all day. Very nice. Very, very good time. So yeah, look out for that content. Go follow it. Even if you're not in the area, you just want to see Travis singing and having a good time and doing all the rebel rousing and shenanigans on the weekends when he's not printing shirts. He's out there melting people's ears with his rock and roll. So yeah, it's a good time for sure. So yeah, let's move into this week. I feel like we haven't had one for a while. Maybe we did. Did we have one last week? A point of interest? Maybe not.
No, we didn't. We skipped it completely because we were pivoting.
You're not wrong. So let's go to this week's point of interest.
Point of interest.
Gets me every time.
That is not one of the songs that we perform.
But what if it was? That's all I'm saying. It's completely out of context. No one will know. You say an interesting fact, or AJ says an interesting fact, or whatever, and all of a sudden, You guys break into that live bumper. No one will understand it, but you can record it and post it to all of the podcast social medias because they will understand. They will understand
They
why.
will.
So, all right, this week, a point of interest, Travis, we're going to talk about something that maybe people don't think about, haven't thought about, don't want to think about. Maybe they think it's boring, or they just avoid it altogether. I think all of those things are
all
true
of those. Yeah.
when it comes to this particular subject. But we're going to talk about insuring your business, and what does that mean from a print-on-demand standpoint, even if you're just drop shipping.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you are a business, and therefore you are carrying liability, whether or not you realize it or not. If you're selling on any platform, and let's say you're selling a coffee mug, someone, gets the coffee mug, they break it, they cut their hand. I mean, there is a scenario where you could potentially be sued because they're an idiot. but the fact remains, there is inherent liability to what we do. Now, I mean, they're not going to cut their hand on a t-shirt. I don't know, kind of where the boundaries are, but the bottom line really is that you are carrying liability because you are a business and you are providing things to somebody. And, I mean, everybody's going to go immediately to like, oh, now Josiah's selling insurance, so they can sell some policies. But
it's not necessarily the case. First of all, you'd have to be in the state of Colorado, and then I would have to be licensed in general liability for business, which I'm not. So I currently do home and auto and personal umbrella liability policies, but nonetheless, doesn't make insurance less of a talking point. And we haven't really touched on it up until this point. I don't think really for all 101 episodes. It's something that we really haven't touched on to my knowledge, to my remembrance. But basically, the reason it's important, like Travis said, is you're giving a good to somebody, and you have liability. They could blame you. You could be responsible for sending them a bad mug, or a wooden sign. Travis, you have wooden signs. You have metal wall posters. You have things with sharp edges or wood or splinters, whatever. Someone were to get injured in the process, well, they're going to come after you because you made it, and that's the kind of liability that you carry. So liability insurance doesn't necessarily, in general, not just in a business aspect, but liability insurance really means everything that is an asset to you. So in home and auto, when I'm talking to someone about an auto policy, I say, picture everything that is of value to you, your assets, that they're in your trunk when you're driving. You're driving around with them. If someone hits you and you're underinsured, they're going to go into the trunk and get what they can for that leftover or that difference in value. For home and renter's insurance, like take your home, tip it upside down. Everything that falls out is an asset to you. That's your personal property, something that can be of value. So what will happen is if someone hurts themselves on a mug, or when we were doing Amazon, this is a lot more of a broad kind of brushstroke topic because you're selling so many odds
everything.
And ends of who knows what food grades, shoes, sharp things,
I sold knives.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever I get my hands on.
You're going to want some sort of liability insurance, because if you don't have it, and let's say your customer gets the mug and they break it, and maybe it's not even your fault. Well, they can still come after you, and that's what litigation is for. That's what that whole process is for, is to decide who's liable. If you don't have any kind of liability insurance on your business, that means that you are personally liable. So your paycheck, your car, your house, your assets, your television, everything is now fair game for them to come after to recoup the loss that they feel like they have suffered, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, whatever kind of damages they're suing you for. If you have a liability insurance in place, it's the insurance company's job to come in and step up to the plate for you and help pay for those expenses. So it's just a really important thing to think about. And also, we talked about this, Joe. It's like in a drop shipping setting, it's still applicable, because if the customer sues you, that means that either you're going to turn around and sue your provider, which means you still have to have liability because part of that insurance, depending on the policy you have, covers litigation fee and will help you pay for your lawyer or whatever that looks like. Or most often what happens is you are listed as a plaintiff along with your print-on-demand provider, and they want to sue both of you. So you're still going to have the liability insurance in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this also brings up kind of something that we have talked about in the past when you're kind of setting up your print-on-demand business. And it's the difference between a DBA, which is short for doing business as, and an LLC, which is a limited liability company. And the benefit of the limited liability company is it kind of protects you. It kind of puts, you've heard of piercing the corporate veil. Well, the LLC is that corporate veil that basically your business are the only assets that potential lawsuit or that litigation can recover. Now they can pierce it, if you are making personal purchases out of your LLC, that's a crossover. They're saying they're basically saying, you can't, I'm sorry, the LLC is basically a shield for you. But if you've been making personal, purchases in that LLC, they can say, well, see, he uses this as his personal bank account or his personal thing. And so they can what's called pierce the corporate veil. Now, I will say that we are not, experts in this, and you do need to contact somebody else. We want to just put that disclaimer out there because we know just enough to be dangerous. Josiah is learning about this stuff, but like he said, he's not even licensed to provide this particular type of coverage. But that doesn't mean that it's not very important for you to figure this out.
Sure.
So yeah, because it can come back to really bite you in the butt. Now we are lucky in that we are selling pretty innocuous products, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not important. What it does mean is that the insurance is probably going to cost less. So it's even less of a barrier for you to protect yourself. Wouldn't you say that's right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's definitely just like, again, in conversations I'm having with people, because the problem with insurance is that it's always driven by price. So you'll always talk to people that say, well, I just want the cheapest. I want the cheapest, or Geico, say 15% or more. And so insurance is always price driven instead of coverage driven when they're talking about it from a sales standpoint. So even the cheaper premiums don't necessarily mean that you're covered on the back end. A cheap premium can end up costing you $60,000 to $100,000 on the back end if you get into an accident or something happens that you're liable for because you settled for the cheaper monthly premium. Conversely, if you have a little bit more, if you're like, wow, well, this insurance for a month is $260 a month or $270, I don't know, man, that's really expensive. I don't plan on getting in an accident, which of course, who plans on getting into an accident? That's why they're called.
That's why they call it an accident.
Yeah, through no fault of your own, this thing happens, right? So the higher premiums, that one that might seem a little bit higher, has the additional coverage that will actually save you the tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars, in the event of a loss or a liability issue. So keep that in mind when you're looking. Don't shop price all the time, because price isn't always. Then I was speaking for. I didn't know before I got into insurance how incredibly how much gaps were in coverage I had in my own autos and renters, because you're just always thinking price. I just want the cheapest price. So keep that in mind. You might have someone that's like, well, it's going to be $250, $260. Well, that's a little expensive. We'll find out exactly what it's going to cover. If you have someone that can do it for $180 with the exact same coverage, then okay, sure. But pay attention to the coverage, not necessarily the monthly price tag all of the time.
And then to just double back, go and freaking get an LLC, man. I mean, it's fine to start with a DBA, and kind of get your feet wet and understand kind of what you're doing. But at some point, it makes a lot of sense to go get that separate business checking account, and transfer all of your funds. You can fund that LLC bank account and start doing your print on demand business through that bank account. Don't use it for personal expenses, and just really focus on building your business with that shield of the LLC. And then you go and you get your insurance under the LLC, And it's probably going to be super cheap because you're probably not making a lot when you start. And just, continue down that path of doing, making right business decisions.
Right.
So Josiah, what does your liability insurance cover? Like, I know you mentioned kind of the home and auto and the idea of everything in your trunk. It's more than just kind of your POD business. It's your whole life. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was saying, you have to think about you're protecting every asset that you have that could possibly that someone could possibly come after. People like to be litigious, and it's very obvious in recent years. People are very sue happy. They're very they don't hesitate to just throw a lawsuit at you. So not only will you be protecting, of course, your business, your book of business, your equipment, obviously all of that stuff that is housed inside of your business, regardless of what it is. If it's a sawgrass printer, heat presses, in Travis's case, 23070s and UV printers, like all of the business equipment will be covered because they won't have the ability to come after the things inside your business if you have that liability coverage that will provide the ability for you to have payment and not have to worry about having to fork it out of your own pocket and pay for their damages. If you don't have that, again, they can come after your equipment, but furthermore, they can come after your house. They can come after the things that outside of your business you don't necessarily think it would affect, but it will affect. And people, when they're recouping damages, because a lot of those kinds of things are so emotionally charged, they don't care about what it will do to you. They feel entitled to their pound of flesh. And so you need to make sure that you have that wall in place that will mitigate and kind of keep them from coming after all of your assets. So, I mean, that's just extremely important that you have that safeguard there in place.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit before, and we are going to, at some point, we're going to even beat this horse even further and bring somebody on that actually can write policies, and has more, can speak more towards this. And we have a couple ideas for maybe some guests that we could have on to talk about this. I know it's not exactly the most sexy topic, but it's part of kind of business basics, and it's more important than we make it out to be. We're just like, how many sales did you make, and how do you do SEO for your listings, and which platforms are you, and all the fun topics. But there are some business basics that they're business basics because they're basic, but that doesn't make them any less important. So look for that in the future. We'll have somebody on. We talked about possibly having the person that carries the insurance for or wrote the insurance for our business. We also talked about maybe having somebody that has the ability to maybe write policies in other states. So if you don't have somebody, we could, you could get a referral from us. And just see if it's right for you and all that stuff. So look for that in an upcoming episode.
Yeah, 100%. So with that, we will transition out of the point of interest and we'll just go straight into this week's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right.
I really felt like you were just scrolling through the bumpers and going,
I was for sure. I was in the really complete wrong section of the little scroll bar here and had to all of a sudden scroll up a couple times to find exactly what I was looking for. But hey,
that's all right.
It happens.
Hey, nice shirt, by the way.
Hey, same to you. Look at that. We didn't even plan it. We didn't call each other or nothing. But if you guys want one of these, oddly, so we were out last week. I think I wore this shirt last week for the podcast. We were out last week and we went and had drinks and some wings and stuff.
Yeah.
And we walked out of the place And the guy goes, "Hey, nice shirt," this random bystander. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And then I realized he thinks it's a Guns N' Roses shirt. he has no idea what this shirt actually says.
So we were just like, oh, you must be a listener to the POD cast.
Oh, so let me tell you about episode 100 and what didn't happen. You get a little sneak peek on a picture. It would have been really weird. But nonetheless, if you want a vaguely familiar shirt that is one of ours and not the one that people think that it is, putonamandcast.com/shop is where you can find your favorite parody shirts that are for your favorite POD cast podcast. putonamandcast.com/shop. So
there you go.
Of that. Enough of that shameless plugging going on. We're going to move into this week's main event. Travis, tell the people what we're talking about today for episode 101, the main event.
Yeah, it's not something that we haven't talked about before, but I think maybe we have a couple new angles for it. But we're going to talk about how to succeed long term in print on demand, because I think there's a lot of people that will jump in and throw some shirts up or throw some products up, and then they really struggle and they don't make a lot of sales, and then they just fall off, and they just stop doing anything. Yeah. And then you ask them later and they're like, oh yeah, POD, it doesn't work. It's not, you can't make you can't make money with POD. And I totally and completely disagree with that. And I think you probably do too, if you're listening. At least I hope you do. But if you are kind of on that beginner, that beginner stage, then I think that this podcast might have some golden nuggets for you to kind of push past that place of like, yeah, this doesn't work.
Yeah. Do you think, how much do you think is attributed to the misnomer that POD is a get rich quick thing? Because I feel like it's positioned that way in some courses. It's positioned that way in some literature where people are like, I made, 6 figures on print on demand or whatever. And this is how you can do it. And here's a course. And so I don't know that those courses necessarily, and again, I'm not speaking to any one course, and I've never taken a print on demand course, so I wouldn't know who has them out there. I'm just saying, in business in general, there's a lot of those courses where it's like, I made this much money on this particular platform, and you can do it too. And most of the time, the majority of those courses don't speak to enough, maybe a little bit, about the longevity and the long game of like, listen, if in 2 months you haven't hit this goal, your goal, keep going. So they might, because it's not really sexy. No one wants to pay that money and then hear someone say, well, you're going to have to hustle for a good, 12 months or whatever before you start to see real benefit. Yeah. And so they just don't really touch on it. But this is free. Yeah. We're not behind a paywall. So we will say all the non-sexy things like liability insurance, and you're going to have to hustle your ass off.
I 100% agree. It's really funny. There is a cycle that online businesses will go through, and you saw it. I mean, you have if you've been in online, how to make money online space for any length of time, you see it all the time. It used to be, and this isn't even the first thing, but like when everybody was making exact match domains and they would put AdWords on it and Amazon affiliate links, and they would, it was best shovel for winter, best snowshovel.com, and they would just try to make as much, and they just rinse and repeat 1,000 times. And then all of a sudden you started seeing courses come out for how to make money building websites. And then all of a sudden that, Google changes their algorithm, and it, the exact match domain doesn't have as much power anymore. And then it slowly goes down. And then the next thing pops up, and then people are like, oh, I'm in on the ground floor and this is awesome. And then somebody comes in with a course, and then 1,000 courses. And then eventually that slowly tails off. Yep. And it's just the way of the world. It's the way of the online internet, make money online thing. And you're exactly right. there are a million. We started both kind of on our e-commerce journeys in Amazon. And when we started, there weren't as many courses as there are now. There weren't as many guys standing in front of Lamborghinis, than there are now. And I'm seeing that in the print on demand space. To your point, there are a lot of people that say, yeah, you can, here's my screenshot of my revenue. And right there is a huge telltale sign. If they're showing you their revenue, revenue means nothing in a business. I mean, it's important, obviously, but revenue is not what you take home. I don't care what they say. And they're like, oh, well, here's my revenue. And I've gone ahead and I've taken out all of the printful, price, all my printful expenses. And here's my profit. Bullshit. That's not your profit.
So you still nothing.
At the end, yes, that's exactly it. I mean, there's still more expenses. There's your salary, there's your staff salary, there's the VAs that you use, the designs that you buy, there's the softwares that you use, and there's the bookkeeping and this bookkeeping software and all of these expenses that go under the revenue and the cost of goods line. That is a lot of money. Nobody really talks about this when they're marketing their courses, and I understand why. It's really funny though, because there's a lot of people out there that make more money off their courses than they do off their POD. And I don't have, exact figures. I don't even have allegorical, data, really, but I know it to be a fact that when you're charging $500 to $1,000 for a course and you get, 100, 200, 500 people jumping in, that's probably more revenue than you got on all of your POD for that whole year, to be honest. And that's just the way of the world, and you just need to be aware of that. That I'm not saying that courses aren't good. I'm not saying that courses can't help you. When I started on my Amazon journey, I took a course in private label and I learned a lot from that course, but I'm still on those guys' email list that I took the course for. And the only thing I ever get is the latest rendition of their course and how they're going to make you rich. And they have made, I'm not kidding, they've made millions off of their courses. I don't know how much they've made on Amazon actually, but my guess is they stopped Amazon a long time ago and focused on the courses.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty, like you said, it's a pretty common business move, kind of moving over to the course world or the teaching world, because people do want that information, but again, they just don't touch on the long game, which is what we want to talk about here, how to succeed.
I just want to say one last thing about that, because I don't want to, we have had people on our show that have courses, and I don't want to say that courses, I don't want this to come out as like anti-guru or anti-course, because I think that a lot of what you can learn in those courses is really important. Like I said about my history and being able to start with a course, it really helped us a lot. And I think that it can be the right thing for people also. But I just want you to be aware that when you're seeing that revenue number, that is not what they're taking home. Nowhere near that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we want to talk about succeeding long-term in POD. So talk about, Travis, kind of starting off here, monetizing a hobby or a skill set. Like that's kind of like, decide what you're going to do in POD. And that's one way that you can decide how to do that, right?
Yeah, I think, the first thing if you're going to be successful, you need to decide what you're going to do. So there's several things you can do with POD. It's an incredible opportunity. Like you just said, monetize a hobby or a skill set. So if you're a designer, POD is an excellent place for you, because you have a hobby, you have a skill set, and you're going to test that out over time on print on demand products. And so I think deciding where you're going to go with this or what you're going to do is as important to your success long term as actually what you do. So we talked about it a while back, the kind of the know your why type of thing. So, monetizing your skill set. You're a great designer. Maybe you're a great marketer. Maybe you're great at building websites. That is one thing that's kind of the why you're going into this particular niche, and it'll help you long term. Generating passive income, that's another one. You're like, hey, I've heard the stories, I just need a couple $100 to pay for my car payment. That is a legitimate reason why you are doing POD. There's a few others, right?
You
Josiah?
can do validating a product or a business idea. So we've talked a lot about in the past how POD is good for proof of concept, because you're not having to invest a whole lot up front, especially if you're just doing drop shipping. You pay for the designers, you pay for your whoever's time, and then you can throw some designs out there that you think might work. Or if you're wanting to do your own kind of design or fashion line or whatever it is that you have an idea for, POD is a good way to validate that, because if a certain design pops off consistently, then okay, well, this is okay to get mass produced. Okay, this is actually hitting a chord. It's resonating with people.
This niche is going to work. Maybe your dog, your dachshund shirt or whatever, your wiener dog shirt, popped off. Well, let's do some more wiener dog shirts.
Right.
There's a proof of concept thing that happens.
Yeah, and you can also do, which is something that I've done for a long time, is sell merch to an existing fan base through influencer marketing. But if there's already people who are a fan of something and they don't have merchandise, and you just want to be the person, almost either like a broker or merch broker, if you're doing a merch by Amazon thing or drop shipping, and you're having them work through you and all of that kind of stuff, or you're just doing the production in-house. This is a really good way, because it's something where advertising is essentially taken care of. You just have to worry about getting in front of the right business to business people, the right influencers, the right, type of people that you can sell to. And then you can even expand it more into like doing private label stuff for those people too. We've had
Go ahead.
There's a small delay. I don't know, but anyway, there's been a lot of people who we've taken them on as just merch clients, and then they'll say, "Well, what about this? And have you thought, can we do that?" And so it moves into like a private label where you kind of lean into that Amazon experience of like, well, no, but we can actually get that made, and we can actually bring it in, and we'll drop ship it for you, but it's going to be a different process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've when I was studying private label early on, there were people that, I don't know how effective this is anymore, but they would go and they would start a Facebook group or a Facebook page or whatever, and they would just drip content and build up that page on a specific interest. So maybe it was yoga, and they were selling yoga mats, and that was how they built their audience to then build out that that private label brand. Well, you can flip that, and you could do a yoga group and get a bunch of people and do some kind of cool yoga shirt or something. And then eventually, after you've proved, okay, people are willing to buy yoga related material, then you can go and get the yoga mats made and join and kind of do that after. So there's a lot of whys, and like long-term kind of strategies that you can have with print on demand. But for the purposes of this show, and probably a lot of our listeners, not to put anybody in a box, but let's just focus on kind of the generating passive income idea, at with how to succeed long term. So I think the first question that comes to me when I hear, well, I just want to generate passive income, and that's what the gurus will sell, oh, you can generate passive income and sit on a beach and sip a pina colada and the sales will just flow. So what exactly is quote unquote passive income, and does it really exist? What say you, Josiah?
I think you have to do a lot of for anything to become passive, in my experience, and this kind of business, there has to be a lot of upfront active investment. So there's a lot of front end work that goes into something becoming passive. You're not going to throw up a shirt and then just get passive income. that's going to allow you to do the often talked about thing where you just get to go sit on a beach and drink Mai Tai.
That was awesome.
It's not going to be that easy. There's a lot of upfront work that's going to go into it. It's a lot of what we've talked about: organization, design ideas. What are you going to sell exactly? How much of it on how many designs? Building up a brand, building up your store, populating with a lot of listings, whatever that looks like, in order to have something that can be passive at a sustainable point. So they don't really talk about that part of like, hey, it can become passive, but you're going to be very active. The income is going to be active for a long time because you're going to have to invest a lot in order to be hands off.
Right. I think the passive part of passive income really comes, to your point, after you've done the hard work. And even if you just want to be a one man show, like I have a lot of products that just sell in perpetuity, that, so you could call that passive income if you wanted to label it that, but I still get returns on those things. I still get customer questions. I still get, damaged, hey, it came damaged or whatever. I need a new one. There are things that I have to do, even with my, again, quote unquote, passive income, that I have to still work for. Now, you can get some VAs to handle all of that part for you. If you can train them well, make some really nice standard operating procedures and all of that, and get to more of a passive income. But the counter to that is that's going to cost you money. So you better be selling a lot before you start systemizing this stuff. Because if you do want to sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais or pina coladas all day, or go kayaking, like I was watching a Scooby-Doo episode the other day, and he was actually kayaking. And do you know how Scooby-Doo kayaks?
I have no idea.
He rut-rows.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We have some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Oh, that's terrible.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right.
That was terrible.
That was awful. The only reason we used it is because I love that Mexican Scooby-Doo theme song. And I'm Mexican, so I can say that. I'm just gonna say that real quick. But yeah, I completely even forgot what you were saying.
That's terrible.
How did you? That was a really good segue, though.
Did you like that?
It was
talking
great.
about the beach, and then we were in a kayak, and then
that's right. That's right. Like
Scooby-Doo.
I was not. Up until the main event, I was wondering how you were going to get there, and then I kind of let it go. And you got it. You got it. You taught me.
You're gonna learn today.
All right. So, okay. So passive income. You established. It's not necessarily passive at the get-go. It can be. It eventually can turn into something that is passive, but it takes a lot to get there.
Right. So when we're generating this, or we're trying to generate, I would prefer to call it long-term income, as opposed to passive, because that's really the goal. You just want something that's going to keep coming and keep coming. And people have labeled that passive, but again, I don't necessarily feel like that's the best word for it. So generating long-term income, you're going to, and this is kind of where the meat of the subject comes into. You're going to need to start with some organization. And, we talked about the why. So if our why is to generate passive income, how are we going to organize our business in a way that will provide for this long-term income? And we've had plenty of podcasts where we talked about how we organize our designs and our SKUs and how we do all the spreadsheets and all that, and this is not easy work. This is hard work. You can do it easily with less organization. And that long-term income won't potentially be as A, long-term, or B, as income-ish. Is that a word? Can I use that word?
Yeah, it is now. You just taught us a new word. So
okay.
We learned something today, folks.
The more you know.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, no, I agree. Organization is such a necessary evil. A lot of people don't like to put in that. It's not everyone's skill set or wiring. But to your point, there's VAs out there that not only can do design, but there's lots of VAs that can help you with organization and spreadsheets and data entry and all that kind of stuff, right? So,
right.
I mean, Travis, we've talked about it a lot, and you guys, Make Your Mark Design has a lot of things in place to that end, to organization. So, what are some things that people can do that are listening? Like, man, I don't even know where to start. How the hell do you organize anything? What would you say? I mean, what can you do to organize?
Well, I think one of the things that you can do is you can kind of just, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
And that's right.
And so, yeah, you don't have to accomplish everything this week, but it would be good to start somewhere. So I would recommend, like I always do, I would recommend a naming schema for your SKUs to start with. And that ties in somehow to your designs, because like I've mentioned before, you have all of these designs that can go on all of these products. But when you have a design, let's call it, 101 design, that design is going to go on a mug. It's going to go on a t-shirt. It's going to go on a sign. It's going to go on a poster. It's going to go on all of these things. So you need 101 in that SKU with whatever else you're going to, for your naming schema for your SKUs. And then that needs to go on a spreadsheet, guys. Sorry, but you need to just put that in a spreadsheet. And the cool thing is that if you put that on a spreadsheet, you can also put your title for that particular product, that mug, because it's going to be that particular title for that mug is going to be different than the SKU and when you put it on a sign, and you're going to have a different title, and you might even have different bullets and different descriptions, and you might have the same art file, which I would also put a link to that on that spreadsheet. But just start there, just going through and saying, okay, from now on, any new thing I list is going to be organized in a way that makes sense, to where it has the design ID or the design number or whatever it is. And then it tells me what the product is. I know people that use dates in their SKUs, and they say, this is the date I launched my SKU. And so they can look and they can kind of sort it by that. And there, you can put as much information in that SKU as you want. You just need to have kind of a key, think like a map key. So well, MG stands for mug, and MG11 is 11 ounce mug, MG15 is a 15 ounce mug, TST is a t-shirt, or whatever it is. You need to have kind of that SKU key, so you can quickly name these products, and you're going to continue to add those keys as you go and you add products. I think that is a great way to set yourself up for success, for long-term success.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the number one thing. I don't know. Is there other? I'm sure there's some other, like, how do you organize your business? Well, you go get an LLC instead of doing it as a DBA, like we talked about in the point of interest. There's probably other things. Can you think of anything off the top of your head?
Man, off the top of my head, no. For me, organization is always, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're at in your business. If you're doing drop shipping, maybe you have an organization structured to communicate with your VAs. You have a communication structure for emails that go out to customers that have questions, right? So you've got your return template and a follow-up template and a broken goods template, and all of these different things you can literally just copy and paste and fill in the name. I highly encourage you to always remember to change the specifics, because I can't tell you, there's many times where copy and paste bites you in the butt, and you send off a message and you go back and reread it, and you're like, that's not at all the customer that I was talking about. They did not order that. But
your name is Josiah, not Jan.
Exactly. You want to piss off your customer more?
Right.
Say the wrong information. Like, what is going on in your business? So templates for customer service is huge. If you're doing production in-house, man, we could talk for way too long about organization to production processes and QC, quality control, and ship. All of that. All of that requires so much so much organization. But I think for the majority of you listening that are just doing drop shipping, customer service templates, spreadsheets is huge, and then leave room for improvement. We've talked about this before. Try and forecast something that will grow with you, because scale is always most of the time is always the goal. And so you're going to have to tweak and continually improve and not get married to a particular system or particular thing that you've done, because it might not serve you the same 2 years in as it did 6 months or 1 year. So always leave room for improvement.
We had a conversation today with Mike and Tate, and we were talking about we're going to try to figure out a way to do like barcode labels on our DTG, so we can like put them in the, so they follow. So there's a barcode that follows the product all the way through the production process. Yeah. And I am guilty of being married to our existing system, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything, and this is going to change. And I'm like really in the weeds with it, but I think I have to step back and go, okay, I have a team of people that can help me with this. We can get this done and we can figure this out. There's a lot of things that I think we don't know yet, but we're on the right path. And I think fear of change is a real big hindrance to long-term income and growing this and, scaling this and succeeding long-term in print on demand. And so if you can step back, again, we talked about this last week, just step back and try to be okay with certain things. It can definitely help your business. And then also getting that added input, because Tate's sitting here going, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but, and, I needed to just, keep my butt to myself.
Sure. Well, I think there is, safety and wisdom in a multitude of counsels. So it's good to hear all of those things out. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's like, okay, well, all right, so we just need to try this thing out. Or, I'm going to listen to you because I trust you. And we're going to go with it, or I'll start it. Yes. I think that's one thing that, when it comes to ideas in any kind of avenue, it's like, for me, I've always tried to approach it with, okay, start with yes, and then see what happens. Like, as we're talking, you're either going to solidify my yes, or I'm going to go to like, no, but you have to talk me into no instead of I always try and go with yes, I guess, is my thing, until we get kind of poke holes in the devil's advocate. And then, okay, cool. Well, we found a hole in it. Because if you start off supportive, then you automatically have that other person's buy-in and trust, because they feel like you're automatically supporting what they want to do. And then as you talk through it together, more often than not, the other person at the same time will realize, oh no, that's the issue. Okay, nope. Yeah, it's not ready. Sorry. Yeah. It's like, all right, come back to me when it is, that kind of thing. Yeah. It can be a lot less combative when it's done that way. But the next thing, talk about long-term goals is always going to require an element of planning, right? And the first thing we talked about, what your why is, and sometimes your why will inform your objectives, because you want your objectives to support and lead to, and why are you doing this to replace your income? Okay, well then your objectives will reflect that. Are you doing this to pay your car payment every month? Your objectives are going to reflect that. So a lot of this, and we've talked about it before, is really informed by your why. Your why is super important to have. But yeah, what are your objectives, and what are some of the large scale goals, like dream casting big, my pastor at City Point, whenever we sit down and have a discussion about an idea that I'm bringing to the table, he always casts big vision, or I always cast like, and then this and this, and it's 5. And then you want to scale it back to, okay, well, how do you start that? Let's break it down. Let's make it more digestible. Like you said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So, that's kind of the thing. You want to set the large scale goals first, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like it's good to have stretch goals, so at the beginning of the year, we did a whole thing with our staff, and we we set some goals, and they were pretty lofty, and I don't know if we're going to hit them. But what it does for you is it, like you said, it kind of creates that picture of your preferred future. And when you have that picture, you can work backwards from there, to, and so maybe your large scale goal is to, I want to sell $10,000 worth of print on demand products this year. And you haven't sold anything yet, or maybe you've sold a few things, but you want to sell 10,000. That's a great stretch goal. But the issue with the stretch goal is if that's your goal, if you leave it there, it will do absolutely nothing for you. You have to break that down. Like, again, you basically just said, here's the elephant. Yay. We want to eat this elephant. But if you don't break that down, it's not going to do anything to you. So one of the things, and we have a whole podcast on this where we talked about SMART goals, and I won't go into the details on that, but basically you're taking these huge visions and then you're going to break them down into shorter term goals. So there's smaller chunks that you can digest. And maybe there's some time frames, so if I'm going to sell $10,000 worth of print on demand products, that means that obviously if every quarter was equal, which we know it's not because Q4 is, 2, 5, 10x. Typically, or can be. But if every quarter was equal, that's $2,500 in sales every quarter. And maybe you don't want to do that. So maybe you're going to say, okay, first quarter that I'm in, I'm going to do 1,000. Then the next quarter, I'm going to do, 2,500. Then I'm going to do, and I don't know what the math is, but you're escalating those. And maybe you do factor in that Q4 kind of bump in your goals, but you're breaking those down. And then even beyond that, you have to say, okay, well, what is it going to take to hit these numbers? Okay, that means I need to list on Etsy in the first quarter. I need to list 10 products on Etsy, in every week or 20 or whatever the thing is that you feel like you can do. And this breaks even further down into once you have those types of things, you can start your daily goals, and it may even be weekly goals that then you go to daily goals. But like this week, I'm going to get my business license, my sales, my tax exempt stuff, and I'm going to get an LLC. That's this week's goal. And so what does that mean today? What am I going to do? Well, today I'm going to call the bank and get a checking account. Right. Tomorrow I'm going to go search the Secretary of State. And do you see what I'm saying? So it's just, you're starting with this big, huge picture and you're breaking it down a little bit, and then you're going to break it down even more. And then you're going to break it down even more to your daily kind of task list or your to-do list. Right.
Yeah. I think that really works. And you just got to get granular as much as people like to. I think a lot of people love the stretch goals. A lot of people like the vision casting because it's all pie in the sky, right? There's no, you have to bake the pie to put in the sky, but no one wants to talk about that. I just want to talk about the pie in the sky. Those are really easy goals to come up with, but then to actually have to put, pen to paper and figure out what that looks like helps you decide if they actually are sustainable and achievable. Because sometimes they're not, and sometimes you have to adjust the big goals, which is fine. As long as you're doing something that is something that's going to be, actually attainable. And then at the end of it, you can make the goals, but goals are nothing unless you actually follow through with what those goals were to the best of your abilities. You might not hit some of the stretch goals, but if you hit more of your daily goals, you hit more of the short-term goals, maybe it doesn't, the stretch goals are still a ways out. That's fine, but you need to follow through in order for any of it to actually come to fruition.
Yeah. And that's obviously the kind of the biggest thing is that you follow through, but don't sleep on that planning part, because if you don't have something to follow through with, you just have the big elephant, you won't follow through. You need to challenge yourself, and not only with the big goals, but challenge yourself by saying, okay, if I want to hit $10,000 in sales this year, I need to list 10 products a week, or 5 products, 7, whatever it is. Right. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people, that's what people sleep on. That's the thing that, they come back and like, POD doesn't work, man. it just doesn't work. And he's like, how long have you been doing it? I've been doing it for 6 months, man. And 7 months. I've been doing it for a year. It just doesn't work. Well, how many products do you have? Well, I have 75 products. And you had a year and you did 75 of them. Well, good job, bro.
Yeah.
That's not, 75 is great, but not for a whole year.
Yeah. I'm saying, so even if you did, 5 products, you listed 5 products a day, that's over 1,800 products in a year.
Yeah.
That's just 5 a day. You know what I mean? And that's, if you think about it, one design goes on a shirt, a mug, a tea towel. There's 5 things that one design can go on, and they all count as listings. And so putting them up there for sale, it's a volume game. It really, really is. The more you have, the more likely you are to have enough income to help you get to those larger goals.
Right. And then, there's obviously a ton of caveats to this. Sure. Maybe you're not listing on Etsy. Maybe you're listing on a website, and maybe part of your strategy is to spend so much on marketing, and you're actually going to, you have a group already that is interested in like a certain subject, and you kind of know what you're going to do. Well, testing is a huge thing. So maybe not launch 5 products, maybe test 2 products a week for the next month and see which one is the number one, and then take that one and, build off of that one. Or, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this thing, and it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. But to your point, I love the idea of like, I'm going to take one design and I'm going to put it on 5, 6, 7 products every single day, because that doesn't take a lot. Or if you don't want to do it every day, every other day, I'm going to do 15 a week, because that's 3 times that I can put one design on 5 products. Yeah. And I only have to do that 3 times, and you know what? Maybe you're going to have to, skip the Netflix every once in a while and take a little longer to watch Stranger Things season 4, which I don't recommend, because it's awesome and you should binge it right away. But for your business's purposes, it may not be the best strategy. But come home and get your shit done, before you turn on that Netflix machine.
Even 15 a week is still 780 items a year. So,
exactly.
that's way better than 75. You know what I mean?
How many platforms are you putting those on too?
Right.
Right. That's another question. If you have a spreadsheet, it's a heck of a lot easier to throw them on Amazon too.
Yep.
And we can even show you how.
Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity when you plan correctly and then you follow through with that plan.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Well, Travis, we've almost got an hour out of this.
I can't believe that
episode. Anything else before we wrap it up?
No, I just really want to encourage you guys to take that planning part really seriously. Take a minute, push pause on the podcast, get out a piece of paper, unless you're driving, because that would be dangerous. And really think about, first of all, your why, and then, what are your big long-term goals, and then start breaking those down. If you haven't done that already, it's probably one of the most important things you can do for long-term success in the print-on-demand business.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you heard it, folks. So go and take that planning stuff seriously, and we hope that you guys plan on being back with us again next week here on the Print on Demand Cast. So thankful for all of you. Thank you for listening, as always. If you want to get a hold of us, if you want to know how to talk to us.
Attention hotline fans.
You can reach out to us, Facebook, or printondemandcast.com/Facebook, rather, is where you can go to join the Facebook group, join the conversation, join the family. Mm-hmm. Post a dad joke, which seems to be the more popular thing to do in that Facebook group. That's fine. But if you want to keep up to date with announcements and things that are happening with the show, printondemandcast.com/Facebook is where you can do that. printondemandcast.com/YouTube and /Instagram is also where you can find us on social media. And if you just don't like social media, you can email us info@printondemandcast.com. And as always, wherever there are podcasts, the PODcast is there for your listening pleasure. And I mean, how many are there now?
I hope it's pleasure.
15. Yeah,
I don't know
that's
how many
true.
it sends to.
Hopefully we're not.
Hopefully it's your
guys.
listening pleasure.
Yeah.
Killing me, Smalls.
So yeah, so you reach out to us, do that. But listening wise, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google, Stitcher, all the things. But iTunes, the podcast app, is where you can leave a 5-star review and let us know what you like about the show. It helps this information get in front of people who need it. And so if this has been beneficial to you, write a review, share the podcast, share a YouTube video, share something from the Facebook page. All of it helps, and we're very, very thankful for all of it. So go ahead.
I got one more. What do you call a Great Dane wearing a snorkel?
I don't know.
Scuba Doo.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you?
With it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So, with that being said, folks, for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we will see you next week right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.